livens things up when you get a Buckeye in the chat right off the bat. That's what we have today on the program. It's all right. Michigan, Ohio State, greatest rivalry in college football, and it's never too far away from people thinking about it. And, it stirs things up, mixes people up, gets them fired up, just like when Wednesdays throughout the spring and summer, that's when Jim Scarcelli joins us, which that is today, the last Wednesday in May. Here he is, Scar, joining us in a maize and blue shirt. Hey, Scar.
No, Danny, actually, this is a shirt from a safari in Kenya. When you go on a safari, they call it the Big Five. I don't know if you can read it. It says the Big Five.
Okay.
The Big Five. These are the animals you want to see. They're hard. They're not always easy to see, but it's the leopard.
Okay, go ahead.
The leopard, the rhino, the elephant, the lion, and then the wildebeest or the African buffalo. The rhino is one of the toughest to see, and the leopard. But anyway, I've been there, saw a lion hunt down. You saw it live. It ain't like going to the zoo, man. I saw a lion hunt down his lunch, a little antelope.
What do you mean? When you went to Africa?
When I went to Africa, yeah, went on a safari. So yeah, I know. Jim took the team to South Africa. I've also been there, and he went on a safari there, and it's a whole. It ain't like a zoo, Denny. It's a different world.
No, well, what was I going to say? Oh, there's a Hemingway book called The Green Hills of Africa, and he's hunting what I think is something like an antelope, but a kuda, he calls them. It's got these like wild horns on there. I wonder if that would be if there was.
Maybe that's the African, but they got different names, same animals.
Maybe if it was the top 10, I don't know. It's a great book, although half of it is spoke in like some kind of African dialect that's kind of can be tough to.
Anyway, we're getting close. Players are, this is the time you just keep. It's kind of time to enjoy summer, but that it's coming close, man. The players are, getting geared up and getting their mind right. You got to slowly get your mind ready for that 3-4 month grind, and it's not easy sometimes.
Yeah, I know when things slows down when there's no basketball or when they're getting into the finals, and the same thing in the NHL. And I got to hand it to SEC. Big Ten, they have their media days. To me, that really kicks it off. It's like, all right, football, we've waited all summer, and here it is. They go to Indianapolis, all the teams, and they bring all the coaches and they talk and everything. That really feels like they do. I think 40 days out from kickoff. The SEC, their media days is going on now. That's a little. I said I had to hand it to them. I don't know what I'm handing to them. It seems a little premature to be getting into it now, but here they are. They all assembled. They got their, they're talking Texas and they're talking Oklahoma with their 2 new teams in there.
I can see, Denny. I can see as a player and a coach where you want to get as much of that stuff out of the way as possible. The closer you get to the season, you want to get, as much BS done. And then the closer you get to, the start of practice, you're just, you're focused in. I can understand it. I know if I was coaching, I'd advocate to get that stuff out of the way early.
Maybe it was Nick Saban. He said, let's forget all of this, doing it in early August. Let's do it at the end of May. That gives
There's always a reason, man.
Right. No, you got that right. Well, speaking of coaches, we're going to talk some coaches today. One, Michigan's defensive coordinator, Wink's defense. Scar, you're going to talk about the overly aggressive, blitz-happy Wink Martindale defense. Is it all of that, what I just said, or will Wink change? Mention those SEC media days. All the coaches were adamant that they just think that this is the end of college football as we know it. Walk-ons are such a integral part of the fabric of college football. All of those coaches were saying that they are upset that there will be no more walk-ons if that ends up happening. But as mentioned, the coaches ranked. It's almost like you're ranking every coach in the country now, Scar, because you got 18 teams now in the Big Ten. So it's a quite an undertaking by you to get into it.
Yeah, you want to start with that then? Is that
Yes. Start with the Big Ten coaches.
well,
And
Danny, listen, I think, listen, having been a high school coach, every job is not the same. I remember Bo saying years ago, he had the Wisconsin job offered to him. Every job is not the same. They're not as easy to build. Okay, so the way I did my ranking, here's how I did it. We got 18 coaches. If you threw them into Champaign, Illinois, or Bloomington, Indiana, which of these 18 guys could build those programs? I'm talking about the tough schools to build. Evanston, Illinois. Go into Rutgers. Okay. It's totally unfair because I faced it as a coach. You got some guys that have demographics, they have resources, they got facilities, they got all kinds of things that other high school coaches don't have. And it's night and day. It's totally different. You can't compare getting the Michigan job, the Ohio State job, the Oregon job, to having to go rebuild Rutgers or, rebuild Indiana, like I said. So I want you to focus on which guy could rebuild Illinois or Indiana. That's how I did my ranking. Do you think that's fair?
I do think that's fair. Life is not fair and coaching's not fair, but that's a good way to go about it. When you said that you were going to do it, I was going to ask for your list so I could put some of the coaches up there that I said, why don't I do one as well? And I use the criteria of just kind of like that. If there was over the years, if I watched the coach and said, I don't really like how he said, I don't like that. So I ranked him a little bit differently, I think, than you or I didn't go by championships or wins. I just looked at him and said, hey, how do I think this guy just overall as a coach, what kind of coach is he? That's how I did it. So we'll see. I'm excited and interested to see how you've ranked him, Scott. Okay,
first of all, and you might think this is unfair, but I do not have Sherrone Moore or the UCLA coach on the list. I don't think it's fair to put them on the list because they have never been head coaches. So I'm not going to evaluate a guy who's never, hired a staff, recruited players, and I get it. You led a team on a field for a couple of games. It's not fair in my opinion to evaluate. So I'm not evaluating the UCLA coach Foster or Sherrone Moore. I don't want to put him on the list. I don't think it's fair. I don't know how you could really do it. So I'm going to start from the bottom. Okay. I got the Purdue guy. He had 1 year. There's a big drop off from Jeff Brom. I forget his name. I can't think of his name.
Ryan Walters.
I got him because I just thought there was a huge drop off from the what I saw with Jeff Brom. I got Schiano at 13. He's been there now 4 years, and I'm not seeing a whole lot of different there. I know he was successful rebuilding it when they were in the Big East, playing Temple and Cincinnati and those guys, but I'm just not seeing it. Mike Loxley's been up and down. I'll tell you what, Danny, I'll give my first lower 8, then I'll let you go, and then we'll finish up the top 8. I just don't know that Schiano's really shown me all that much. I know it's a tough job. It is a real tough place to build. I've been on Rutgers campus, been to a game there. It ain't like recruiting at other schools. A totally different deal. I got Loxley at 12. He's never really been proven as a leader. He had the New Mexico job. He got run out of there. Something happened. He's been up and down at Maryland. I think he's decent, but nothing outstanding. I have Luke Fickell at 11. Because I think he's shown that he did rebuild Cincinnati. He took them to the college playoff. 1 year at Wisconsin is kind of early, but I think he's a good coach because of what he's done. He's proven what he's done at Cincinnati. I got Fleck at 10. That might be a little high because he was a winner at Western Michigan. Minnesota is not the easiest place to recruit. There's not a bunch of athletes in the state of Minnesota. He's done a decent job. Now, this one you might disagree with, Denny. I've got the new Indiana coach at 9. Why do I have this guy at 9? But I really liked what he did at James Madison. Okay. He built that program into a legitimate winner. He's proven he's 1-0 in my book. and I don't have his freaking name. I forget his name, Denny, the guy in Indiana.
Cignetti.
I gave him a high rating because of what he's proven to me as a leader. And Denny, people are going to beat this up, but I got Ryan Day at 8. He inherited a Cadillac, tradition, players, winning championships under Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel. So I cannot Ryan Day in my book is not totally proven. He's just not. I mean, it's a different deal inheriting Columbus than going to Bloomington. So those are my bottom. Again, I did not rake Sherrone Moore and Foster because I just don't think it's fair. But those are my guys. You go ahead and list your bottom 6. I guess I get the bottom 10 there. 10 there.
I'll wait to I'll tell you. I think Fickle's a little bit low, and you mentioned it. It's tough. If you drop any of these coaches into a spot, well, they dropped Luke Fickle into Cincinnati, and he took him to the college football playoff. I mean, that to me shows a heck of a lot of what he was able to do, and we'll see what he's ends up doing at Wisconsin. But to do that, to take a group of 5 team to the college football playoff, I had to have him a little bit higher on my list because of that. And Day, I was struggling where to put Ryan Day and Lincoln Riley because I think both of those guys are good offensive coaches. But the things where I really knocked what you have to say about Day, I knock him in 2 areas. One, watching him against Michigan, especially 2 years ago when they were at home, he had C.J. Stroud and Maserati Marv and Stokes. I mean, he's got just this awesome cast of offensive players, and he's at home. And I would have to go back and look, but I'll remember at least 2 4th and 1, 4th and 2, 4th and 3, close to midfield, where I'm going for it every single time. But he punted, and it was like that was a gift. It was almost like he was giving Michigan turnovers. The gift of Ryan Day. And I also think you could put him, and he probably should be a little bit higher. I'm not knocking you about where you have him. When they backed into the college football playoff after Michigan beat them, and they had Georgia dead to rights, they had to make the field goal. That drive, how Ohio State came down, and it was kind of like, there's one thing about just keeping your your blood pressure and your breathing at an even level or acting like you're practicing. These guys were acting like they're in a spring game in the 4th quarter. It's kind of lollygagging around. Like, we'll play for a 49-yard field goal. I was thinking you got to show a little bit more urgency to get that thing a little bit closer. And sure enough, when he kicked it, he hooked it. It was 10 yards. So maybe it would have been good if he was even from 30. That might be the argument there. And so he was that close. So ultimately, he would have won a national championship, but I downgrade him there, and I downgrade him just watching him on the field with some of his decision-making. And then, those are the 2 big things. But
Danny, you make a great point about Fickle, and you're probably right. Here's my top 7. Okay, did you want to elaborate any more on your bottom?
No, that's good. I think the other ones, I'm with you. And Cignetti, those are tough, but what he was able to do at James Madison, what the style of play and everything else, he's able to bring anything like that to Indiana. I could see that. Look, I don't want a cookie cutter list, Scar, and I've come to expect that you're going to have reasons that you have guys slotted where you have.
Here's my 7th guy, and I admire James Franklin. This guy went into Vanderbilt and built Vanderbilt. Are you kidding me? He made Vanderbilt a winner. Okay, he has not dominated Michigan and Ohio State at Penn State. He's been respectable. He's been good. He's recruited good players. They're just good enough. I've got him at 7. I think he's a good coach. Proven at Vanderbilt. I've got Ferentz at 6. Here's why I got Ferentz high. People are going to say, well, they don't play any offense. You know how many times this guy's been in the championship game on the Western Division, Denny, in the last 15 years? Ferentz?
5.
Okay, we can beat him up. But the guy plays great defense, and you got to look at the results. He's done a good job there. I have Jed Fish at number 5. The reason I have Jed Fish high, Denny, and it might be early, okay? And he only did it for 1 year at Arizona, but Arizona was garbage. Okay, Jedd Fisch got there. He took the Harbaugh philosophy. I'm going to be creative. He did all kinds of crazy stuff. He had Grunt catching punts out of an airplane or a helicopter or something, bring some excitement there. But he won. I watched his team play last year. They're good. They're tough. Jedd Fisch at Washington ain't no joke. That's why I got him as the second toughest game on our schedule. Okay, going to Washington with Jedd Fisch. So I got him at 5. I got the guy at Michigan State at number 4. Why the hell I got him at number 4? I've been on Oregon State's campus. I've been to a game there. It ain't like recruiting at Oregon or Penn State or some other place. Okay, this guy's a winner. They're good. They're tough. I did not want to see them hire this guy at Michigan State. I'm impressed with him based on what he did for 5 years building Oregon State. So I got Smith at number 4. I got Lincoln Riley at 3 because of he's it might be high, okay, but he's proven to me at Oklahoma he can win. That one is probably high, Denny. I got him at 3, and I got the guy at this is probably not fair. I've got the guy at Oregon at number 2, and it really violates everything I said because building Oregon ain't like building Indiana. I mean, he's had some good, he's recruited well. He brought some good transfer kids in. He's done all the good things, and he was competitive last year. It's probably not fair to have him so high because it's kind of like Brayton. Because recruiting at Oregon is a whole different deal than recruiting at Oregon State, or recruiting at UCLA, recruiting at Champaign, Illinois. And Denny, the guy that I have number 1 is I just respect him because he built Temple. He built Baylor. He had a shot in the pros. Is Matt Rule over at Nebraska? I think that guy could win anywhere. You give that guy. I don't want to see that guy in Columbus. I'd rather have Ryan Day in Columbus than Matt Rule. Okay, I'd rather have Smith than Matt Rule in East Lansing. So I'm glad Rule is there. Tough place to Nebraska doesn't have all the athletes in that state to recruit. But that's my guys. Maybe a little high on Lincoln Riley. What are your thoughts?
Well, I like a lot of where you're at. I'll throw my list up there, just how I went through it. I've got Matt Rule number 2 on this list, so I'm right there with you. I like him as a coach. I like Dan Lanning. There's a lot of reasons that I like Dan Lanning is because Kirby Smart, this seems like Kirby Smart 2.0. When that Alabama job opened, the first name that Alabama went after was not the Washington coach. They wanted Dan Lanning. So, he's considered the top coach. What he's done there, I know what you're saying. He walked in, it was pretty much set up. But I also like, and this could be his undoing in the end, Scar, but I'm talking about Lanning. He is, him and Dan Campbell have a very similar approach to football. They're balls to the wall, gamble, let's go for it every time. The Oregon, my guess is if I could bet right now, that if Oregon scored a touchdown on their first drive at Michigan, they would go for 2. That's the way he rolls. That's the way he plays in big games. He's always going for it. Eschews field goals. And that could come back and bite you, as we saw with Dan Campbell. You got to pick your spots. I think these coaches, I get that they want to go, but it's almost like they get too obsessed with it. They got to dial it back.
Then there's an upside to that because I was playing poker the other day, and these guys were dogging out Campbell. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. This guy, how many games did we win? We go into Kansas City. He runs a fake punt. No one's going to question him then. How many times did we close out games where he went for it on 4th down to close it out or 3rd down, to close out games? The guy is unpredictable. There's an upside to being unpredictable. I get it what you're talking about with Dan Lanning. He doesn't go by the book. There's an upside to a guy that doesn't go by the book. As a former defensive player, I get it. I respect it. He's consistently inconsistent.
Yes, Scar, at the poker table, I'm wary of a guy that's always put me all in or going over the top. And it's after a while, you think this guy's just nutbag. He's always pushing all of his chips in there. And then the one time you call him, he's got aces. I mean, so you've seen that, but that gets you thinking. And overall in sports, aggressiveness is the way to go. But, there is a point to being able to play the game too. Let's see if there's any other discrepancies. I like
Danny. See, I think it's Dan Lanning is probably it's more. Yeah, he did a good job in year one, okay, but he didn't beat Washington, and you got him a little higher than I don't know that he deserves to be that high. Brett Bielema, yeah, I didn't have him all that high either. He's kind of just struggling at. He did okay at Arkansas. He got fired. He took over for Barry. Barry had it built. Wisconsin, maintaining Wisconsin is a whole other thing than building Illinois.
Yeah, I would say that for me, Kirk Ferentz, it's more of a feel over watching him over the years. It wasn't even against Michigan. I remember a game against Michigan State. The way that it was an ultra conservative, and then there was just a few. James Franklin's the same way in some huge spots against Ohio State. He's not going to his best players. He's trying something cute. Like I would not. He's a good recruiter, and he did a great job at Vanderbilt. But I don't think James Franklin's all that good of coach. Certainly a play caller. He makes his team tight. I don't like that. And Ferentz, if I was an Iowa fan, I would be storming the gates with pitchforks and torches. I would, having his son over there and then letting him run it back, nepotism all the way over. Great guy and everything else, but I would hate hit if I was an Iowa Hawkeye fan. But hey, that's me. He seems like a real genuine guy.
Benny, they've been to the Dane Championship 5 times. They've been there more than anybody on that Western side the last 15 years. That's why I had them high. I totally understand your point. They play great freaking defense, though. And
that's like being the JV coach, Scar. Like being over on the West, getting to did he win any of those?
But what are you going to evaluate? You got to evaluate him on something, and he's been good enough to win that division. So
good enough to stay around for 30 years. That's fine. I put him over there. That was just you and I did the scrap.
Well, hey, listen, we'll evaluate Sherrone in about 3 years. We'll have a good idea where he is. If he's we'll get a good idea if the staff is great and recruiting great and keep. I mean, everything right now on paper with Sherrone Moore, we couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier because great coaching staff, players are staying. Everything we're hearing is great, man. So
it's not fair, like you mentioned. All these guys like Sherrone Moore and Deshaun Foster have never coached a game. Moore doing what he was able to do in the couple games in the pressure cooker, that did mean something to me. That's why I put him up there. Walters from Purdue, I don't like. Cignetti, he's going to have to do it in a Power 5 conference or whatever they call it now. Braun did a nice job, and I don't know, Jonathan Smith. I'll be ready when I make a ranking, and if Jonathan Smith comes out and has a really good year, I won't hesitate, to go and move him up. It's not just because he's a MSU head coach or anything else, but I don't know. Oregon State, I watched them a few times last year, and I know it's a tough. Corvallis, it's a real tough place, and in all of that. But I don't like as a head coach that Michigan State goes to the Great Northwest to a guy who doesn't have a tie in the world to East Lansing and just pops him right down there when they don't have anything to lean on. MSU, no talent base, no anything else in recruiting. I don't know. I think that stuff is Denny.
I think it's overrated. If Dennis Fithian is recruiting me, I don't give a darn where he's from. If you come into my high school and you recruit me, and I have a great relationship. I don't care if you're from Hawaii or from Alaska. If you come into my school and recruit me, and I trust you and believe in you, I think some of that stuff is overrated, man. Where the hell the guy, how many times has he been in my school? How well does he know my head coach? As a guy who got recruited, I think some of that stuff is overrated, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, the Great Northwest is like being a real culture shock coming into the Midwest, in particular to East Lansing. So I put that, you might as well just got a guy off the moon and dropped him in there. But I hear what you're saying, and maybe a little biased because Rich Rodriguez was a decent offensive mind, and he never did get his quarterback. But he wasn't a fit at all in Ann Arbor.
That's got nothing to do with where he was from. That's a whole nother argument.
Well, he came in,
play defense, they recruit defense. That's a whole nother argument. It didn't matter.
Yeah, but he came in like I know football, and all this is like, he might as well have had a 10-gallon hat on, and his wife had all those rhinestones on her jeans. I knew in the first 5 minutes, I'm like, this guy's not doing anything. I knew after he didn't get Terrell Pryor.
Yeah, I just think it's a totally different deal about, what reasons he struggled. The greatest Michigan coach ever was from West Virginia, Fielding H. the greatest Michigan coach. So Fielding H. Yost. Just want to throw that in there. Denny, I think are we about done here with these coaches? Because something real quick. Did you guys talk about the book coming out?
The book. Oh yeah. The book. Yeah, we've talked about it a little bit. You go ahead, give your thoughts. If you read,
I just want to give my thoughts.
One excerpt last week. I haven't done any further reading with it, but go ahead.
I mean, listen. I'm a guy on the outside. I'm a former player, high school coach. Okay, you got a guy who wrote a book. He's got a guy who's connected to Jim. Todd Anson is in there quoting a bunch of stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
You know how Jim didn't want to leave, this, that, whatever. But what did Jim say when he left? He loved Michigan. He got faith in Sherrone. He loves Sherrone. He loves everybody. He loves, he said all the right things. And what did Ward say? Ward said all the right things. We love Jim. Go Chargers. Michigan West. Everybody loves everybody. Everybody's cheering for everybody. Now we got this book coming out that tells a different story. Okay. So my thing is this. Does any of this garbage help us beat Texas? Does any of this book and other this mumbo jumbo about what Jim really felt, blah, blah, blah. So if all I care about is the minds of the guys at Schembechler Hall. Now, I know people in the media, when this book gets out, and they're going to maybe bring it up more again. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is it's more divisive BS. It all it does is create a division with Michigan. We want to be united, Denny. We want Ohio State divided. We want their coaching staff hating each other and the alumni hating the coaches. We want that going on in East Lansing. Okay, we want Michigan united. Good luck, Chargers. Adios. But a book like this doesn't help us beat Texas in any way, shape, or form. And I just want to, and I know Sherrone and them coaches are going to just squeeze all that out. Keep it out of Schembechler Hall. So I just had to give my point on it. It doesn't help us beat Texas.
Yeah, here's what I know about Todd Anson. He loves Michigan. I think he loves Jim Harbaugh even more. And he considers Armin Kintayan, who was the co-author of this book, one of his best friends. Oh, and for whatever reason it seems like, I'll say it, he hates Ward Manuel. But it comes off as he has an axe to grind with Ward Manuel. If he could say a couple decent things like, Ward, like, I don't know, it's not like I'm Ward's press agent or something, but Michigan's done a decent job. You look at the cup standings; they've done a pretty good job there across the board. The revenue's looking pretty good. So he's done a decent job. Anson makes him sound like he's the devil. Like he might as well. He's sabotaging Michigan in every move. He's chopping football's legs out. So I just don't. I think he's got an axe to grind. He might as well have written the foreword for this book, with his buddy Kintayan. So it's totally biased. I don't know about the other guy. We'll go out. It was good that they got both sides to come in. But one thing I'll give, not the Anson, but Kintayan, is when you're trying to sell a college football book, talk about drama going on in the athletic. Who cares about the stuff that's going on the field or really stuff that you can prove or anything else that's out there? Go down in the pig trough and make a bunch, get some drama going. Contracts, he said, she said stuff. People eat that all up. I think it'll probably do well in terms of sales. That doesn't mean
I'm just questioning. Did Jim approve Anson going out doing this thing? Because I can understand if this is an Ohio State guy writing a book that creates division. I can understand if it's a Michigan State guy writing a book that gets Michigan people hating each other and continue to fight. But Todd Anson, if you're a real Michigan guy, you just go by what Jim's words were when he left, and just let's move on and get behind what we have now. It doesn't do any good.
One last point, and you say something else to close it down. We can sit around talking about it all day. I think that Todd Anson speaks for Jim Harbaugh. Those guys are best friends. And Anson loves Harbaugh, I think, even more than Michigan. I think Jim loves Michigan, but Jim loves Jim too. And Jim is all he wants his side, and he wants people to love him and everything else. Like all of those things that you hear from Jim over. I'll just go back to last year. Don't be bitter, be better. All these things. It would seem like it would apply to this situation, but. Anson's, if he's not his best friend, he's right there in a short line. So I think that he speaks for Jim Harbaugh, and Jim can hide behind whatever he wants into the pros and everything else. But, Jim could have written the forward in the book as well, him and Anson.
Okay, Danny, close it up. Hey, how about this? We've got a recruiting girl named DeReuter. I forget her first name. That was been at Michigan for 3 years.
Christina, I think.
Yeah, I met her. Her dad played at Air Force Academy with my buddy. So she's been there 3 years, does a great job. She's going out to the Chargers with Jim. So, a lot of people, sometimes it's a promotion. It's nothing against what's going on at Michigan, but she was really good at what she did. And she's moving on with the Chargers. So good luck to her.
Okay. Well, we'll wait for her forthcoming book. No, I'm just kidding. That's good. That's good with that. All right. So
Denny, you just had a comment about Fickle. Someone's didn't think Fickle left Cincy very good, so he kind of hates Cincy or hates Fickle. There was a comment there.
Well, what are you going to do? I don't know. Should you hold it against Luke Fickle that he left Cincinnati to go to the Big Ten? I don't know. I guess if you're a Cincinnati fan that you would do that, but that's kind of the name of the game. What can you do about that? Sure. Yeah. You want to hate him, hate him.
Yeah, you give him a big paycheck. Yeah, I'm not sure of all the intricacies of how he left him in the, I'm not sure of what he did that was so bad. Maybe I don't know what he did. Did he take players? But anyway, I thought that was a comment. Wanted to jump in there.
All right, you want to look at some of the other comments? Let's do it. We get a lot of Michigan, Ohio State back and forth today on the chat, so it might be a little bit difficult to find some specific questions because they're just kind of attacking the intruders here. Mark, who always is taking the high road, says Buckeyes have a lot of channels, plus a Michigan Monday feature weekly. Trolls here. So I don't know. He's saying, hey, why don't you guys go? And I have noticed from people that like YouTube channels, people that are whatever fan you are, let's say in this case, Michigan fans like going on Ohio State YouTube channels and podcasts just as much as they like watching Michigan ones. They like going in there and dropping a little, Ryan Days. I mean, that's kind of college football. I don't go in and try to, stir things up a little bit. That's kind of how it goes. I get it. It happens. All right, Scar, we got two or three more things here. The next thing is, and I'm going to give you kind of out of the blue, Athlon, how they quote anonymous coaches they have in the past? Well, Athlon has got an anonymous coach on Michigan. And the anonymous coach says for the Michigan defense, he says the defense will lead the way for them. That can help bridge the rebuild on offense. Will Wink just rip it and blitz? That will be interesting to see. All right, Scar, is Rip going to rip it and blitz? What do you think?
Denny, I've been watching and listening to some thoughts from a lot of Michigan people. They hear that word blitz and they think Don Brown. Wink and Don Brown's philosophies are totally different. You even the game of football, you got 11 guys out there. Guys on your schedule you got 11 games, will have 11 different philosophies. Okay. So Don Brown's philosophy, I would put it as he was more of a chaos guy. Everything you had no idea what he was going to do any down. Okay. They didn't really have a strong base structure. I felt you need a strong base structure, vanilla defense that's going to stop somebody's run game. And I don't think that really exists in the Don Brown package. Okay. Wink is his bloodlines are Jack Harbaugh, which was Michigan, same as mine. I mean, I see what his philosophy is. He's a 3-4 base guy, but they're going to stop the run. The first thing they tell his players is we're going to stop the run. But I knew, Denny, Mike McDonald's very first game when we fired Don Brown and I saw us play Western Michigan, it was going to be different. I was about 90% sure. I saw a base defense, Denny, with great technique, 2 inside guys. We had Hinton and Mozzie Smith. You remember that? I think that was the first group, right? I was looking at those guys, and I saw what the structure was of our defense, and we played with bigger bodies in the game. There were more big guys in the game than what Don Brown believed in, okay? I think Don Brown's stuff is good if you play more, if you're going to play spread people all week, all year. It's probably, but we didn't play spread people all the time. And Don Brown actually did a decent job against, I was worried about it against his defense against Michigan State, what they did. And we actually went there and beat them with what some of the things he did. But Wink's defense, which McDonald ran, which Minter ran, we have a philosophical, solid, straight up, we're not going to slant, not going to stunt, ability to stop your basic vanilla run stuff. I don't know. Okay, so anyway, Denny, you can't compare these two guys. So Wink's thing is we have a strong, solid base, and then from there we will do some stunning. We'll bring backers. We'll bring edge guys from the edge, the strong edge, the weak edge. We'll bring a safety. We'll bring a corner. We'll drop an edge. We'll drop both backers. We'll pressure both A gaps. So he's all over the place with that stuff to create conflict. But the difference is he has a philosophy. They're going to have bigger guys in the game. I remember going to see Michigan play Wisconsin when Don Brown was coaching. I was at the game in Wisconsin on the goal line. Wisconsin comes out with 3 tight ends, maybe 6 offensive linemen, a couple tight ends. It's unbelievable. And we still got the Viper in the game on like the 2-yard line. You remember the Viper, which was instead of a linebacker, which is an extra safety. We had like 3 defensive linemen. I'm like, what are we even doing here? That makes no sense to what I understand and believe about defense. But, if we're playing Michigan and they bring 7 offensive linemen in the game, I guarantee you Mike McDonald and Minter and Wink, we're going to have 6 defensive linemen in the game or 5 we're going to have big dudes in the game. So his philosophy is you ain't going to outmuscle us and you ain't going to run the freaking football on us. Now you might, if you're going to beat us, you're going to have to throw it. You're going to have to fool us. You're going to have to do some stuff. So we ain't got no Viper in the Wink Martindale package. That position doesn't exist. So there's a difference there. So I know but you know what confirmed to me, Denny, that we had a totally different structure was I was pretty sure the first game against Western Michigan with McDonald, and then the second game against Washington, where I was like, man, it's a different world. We're playing defense again. And we've done it the last 3 years. Ain't nothing going to change with Wink. I ain't buying none of that. Worried about blitz. Wink and Don are the same. No, that is not happening. You can sleep, Michigan people, that we are going to play the same kind of defense we played the last 3 years. Period. You put Scar's name on that.
Yeah. I appreciate you going through all of that. I look at it just kind of basic, and Wink even said this himself. So the idea for the defense is to be able to get pressure on the quarterback, and if you're not able to get pressure on the quarterback, well, then you're going to have to try some blitzes. And when you have Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, 2 of the very best defensive tackles, you don't have to commit more players to the line of scrimmage. You can help out in different areas. Sure, if you're keeping people off balance, but it doesn't seem like it would be a smart overall move. If we were just sitting here talking football and we were just looking at a blank team, but you said, yeah, the strength is this front 4, this defense. These guys can get the pressure with just 4, are Scar, is one of your defensive minds going to be in there and say, well, let's really just bring it. Let's really just leave our guys out on an island. And, that doesn't make sense to me. Just basically looking at, the personnel, what do you think?
Danny, the way you can help, let's just say we're going to rush our front 4. We're going to rush our 2 inside guys, our 2 edge guys against a 1 back formation, and that's what we want to do. We're going to rush 4. It's 3rd and 8. That's what we're going to do. Okay, the way you help those 4 guys is you show pressure. You line up pre-snap with 6, 7 guys at the line of scrimmage to create some kind of confusion with the offensive line and their protection. You show both linebackers in the A gap. You have a safety close to the line of scrimmage. Now, those things hurt your coverage a little bit because now they're at the line of scrimmage at the snap of the ball, and they got to get back to cover someone or get, or get to a zone, whatever they got to do. So there's a downside to doing that, but the upside is pre-snap creates conflict for the protection. So there's things you can do while still rushing for, to help put conflict in the protection of the 4 guys you're rushing. And that's what McDonald and Minter have done the last 3 years.
Well, the thing that's going to happen this upcoming season is that there's not going to be a lot of time to Wink, to put his foot in and wade in and everything else, wait to game 8 or 9 to get it all to go. He's playing maybe the best offense that he's going to go against in week 2, maybe, one of the best offenses in the country in Texas. So what he has and what he plans on doing, we're going to see pretty quick. And, if he blitzes and it's effective, it's not like afterwards, like, oh, we're going to get a blitz happy. You're out there trying to win the game any way you can. So my point there is that we're going to see pretty quick what Wink is all about. It's an off-season discussion that everyone is having. It's a good one to have. We're going to find out quick. We don't have to wait till November to see what Wink's all about with how he's going to coordinate and what his plan is going to be.
Yeah, it's the spring game was interesting. The base defense was there. But there's differences between him and McDonald and him and Minter. But the base foundation, 85, 90% of what we are is still there, Denny. That's why I'm sleeping good at night defensively, because it ain't broke, don't fix it. There's just a couple little tweaks that Minter did differently than McDonald. A couple little tweaks that Wink's going to do differently than McDonald and Minter, but the foundation is there, just like what we're going to do. Sherrone will have a couple little tweaks offensively that he believes in that's different than Jim, but the foundation is there. That's why I'm feeling good about everything.
All right, Scar, finally, from my side, I wanted to ask you, because SEC Media Days, as we mentioned at the top of the show, they are together right now, and they're coming up with all the different questions for the coaches. But one of them was the idea that there's going to be an 85 scholarship limit or an 85 roster limit, probably the better way to put it, where you're not going to have the ability to have walk-ons on the team. And a lot of the coaches, Kirby Smart was going through from Dabo Sweeney to, I don't know if he named a couple other different coaches that walked on at Alabama. And, he was talking about guys that would walk on at Georgia, and just, we could sit around talking about Michigan, the Jordan Kovacs, who went on to be a captain. Now Brian Greasy, I think, they've probably a preferred walk-on, but he was a walk-on. He was a walk-on. It happens where you get guys that walk on and they end up being a big part of the team. So these coaches were lamenting the idea that there's not going to be any walk-ons.
Yeah, Denny, it's a sad deal. It's a sad day. I played with walk-ons that became scholarship guys, became starters, and it's all about the NIL scholarship. That so basically they're saying you can only have 85 guys on your sideline. Period. That's it. You got 85 scholarships, and I understand it because Jim had and he wasn't the only one. The schools that have a big bankroll. I mean, we had 140 guys on our team the last couple of years.
Yeah.
How many of those guys were NIL scholarship guys? We don't know. But Michigan wasn't the only guy doing it. So that's what they want to eliminate, because Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, the places that have a big bankroll, can Illinois and Indiana and Rutgers compete with those guys and have 20 guys on NIL scholarships? They probably can't. They don't have the bankroll. So that's why they have to do this. So that's that. It's a sad deal because, again, I play with guys that earn scholarships. So,
well, the thing that I would say, I think a lot of it has to do, I mean, you hit it. It is money. I think it's cost of surety for these schools. They don't want to, they've got their 85 scholarships at a place like Michigan. You can go another, 10, 20, 30, and you could give them scholarships to, you can pay for their school and all of that. When would it end? This will help out James Madison. This will help out the Mid-American Conference.
Right. Trickle down.
It will. Those players will go there, but then they'll end up, if they're any good, and if it works out, well, they can jump in the portal. So
you're right. I think I got that on my notes. I was going to get to that Eastern, and instead of the last couple of years where the MAC schools, we're not getting as much talent because there were more guys playing in the big schools. Now, they can only take 85. So you're going to get number 86 and 88 and number 9. Those guys are going to go play for Eastern, Western, Central, and these guys. So you're going to see better players in the MAC. You're going to see better players in the D2 now that aren't going to play at they don't have enough scholarships at Eastern Michigan. So essentially, you're going to have more. The NFL rosters are probably going to have more guys. They got 53 active rosters, but they got all kinds of practice squad and all kinds of other. They're going to have more guys to. So the way you run practice, Denny, is going to be a big thing now. Okay, when you have 140 guys, you structure your practice a certain way. But now when you only got 85 guys on scholarship, you have to be, there's probably going to be less hitting. You have to be real conscious. No walk-ons, only 85. The way you structure practice it's so crucial to develop depth, injuries now. So it's a whole big different deal there. Texas A&M, the 12th man, Denny, they got a big deal on that. They took a guy out of the stands 100 years ago. They needed a player. That's why that 12th man is a tradition for them, and that's going to be done. But, and the gray shirt, I think Caden Colasar was a gray shirt. That's going to be done. Basically what that was we like you, man. We really want you, but we're going to have you pay for maybe the first semester or the first year, and then we're going to put you on scholarship. Those guys are going to be a thing of the past. They can't do that anymore. I know guys, Denny, that were on this Michigan football team that were NIL scholarship guys. They were not full scholarship guys, but they got 4 rings. They were on that championship team. They were not walk-ons because they got their schooling paid for. That stuff is everywhere. It's not just Michigan, but they were NIL scholarship guys. So it's you have to be really, really selective in your recruiting, even more so now. There's less room for error.
Scar, the story that came out late last week where teams, and they have to hammer everything out. There's a long way to go to get it, where they got it down to the 1 yard line or whatever else, but that schools can pay with revenue sharing. Jim Harbaugh was talking about that last year. Ferris throws the question out there. I want you to answer it. He says, and there's the 20 million, it's roughly around there that is being talked about, that you could pay, the university could, in the athletic department. How would you spread that 20 million out to the athletic department?
That's a department decision, man. If you're going to spend it on a majority on football and men's basketball, then you're going to have your other sports won't be able to compete and recruit. We won't have very good women's basketball. But so those are decisions that the leadership has to make. Do we want to be competitive in all of our sports? If we have a salary cap of 20 million, and the question was, I would think NIL is something that you can still always do on your own, go out and market your name. But yeah, that salary, that $20 million to spend, and then you got Title IX. Denny, hey, can you give a football player more than a women's field hockey player? How's Title IX going to handle all that? I don't know, because that doesn't mesh with Title IX. You give this guy $1,000 a month, and you give the girl $50 a month. That's not title. That's not. So I don't know.
No, that's not Title IX. I think that all of those other sports, they pour money into the athletic facilities. They've got number one with uniforms and facility. A lot of the teams are being flown charter all over the country. Like the women's basketball teams chartering around. So they still have all of that. If you are allowed, I would take the money and I would give it to the teams that produce revenue, and that's football and basketball. And for Michigan, the thing is they have to figure out strategically, if they have 20 million, can they and want to pay that to high school players? Are they willing to do that? To me, that's a big part of it. And so if you have to give 10 million to the women's sports, are they going to be promising upfront money to a field hockey player from England? I don't know. Is that what they're going to do with it? Those things have to be hammered out.
Yeah, because Ward Manuel isn't going to have alumni down his throat if our field hockey team is getting out recruited by Ohio State or getting outplayed, outcoached. If we get hammered, if our volleyball team or our field hockey team or our golf team gets hammered by Michigan State, I don't know if Sherrone, if Ward Manuel's losing his job. But if our football team gets run around by the Buckeyes who are spending more money than us, or our basketball team, Ward Manuel's going to get some pushback from somebody. So, those are decisions that our leadership has to make.
Yeah, and I know they look at a lot of different things. I would keep coming back to the size of that stadium and saying we need to keep this thing full. We need to keep 110,000 people, because these costs, like the Big Ten and all the conferences are paying that couple billion to the players in back money. The schools aren't just going to take that and just peel off a couple, billion and be like, hey, we're good. Let's just move forward with what we have. They're going to try to offset some of those costs. It's coming back to season ticket holders. It's coming back in TV rights and all of that. We're all going to be paying for that. And you better have a pretty good product out on the field. People are paying all that money for TV and for those tickets because they're interested in football the most. So I would try to keep that in mind when they're going about all of it.
Yeah, it's it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, because they talked about some of the other sports now being able to have more scholarships. Some of the men's sports. So I don't know how that's all going to play out, but we got to. It's evolving as we speak, Denny.
Yeah, Mark throwing out that stadium revenue is probably the lowest % of football money ever. Well, where are the revenue streams? You get as a package, you get apparel. That's TV money. That's going to be the biggest one. I would agree with there. But I don't know, Michigan. What they get 25 million a game, for home games. It's the lowest percentage, but it's still a pretty good. They're getting a lot of money from a game day Saturday from 110,000 people going to the game with everything going on. A football Saturday, come on, it's still up there.
Yeah, there's no question. So, yeah, it's important to have those games at home.
Yeah, it means an extra 20 to 25 million if you can get an extra game in there. Next year, they're going to Oklahoma. It's not going to be just sitting back. Oh, Mark's talking about 250 per ticket. Yeah, I don't know. What do you pay? Scar, you don't have to pay for your tickets, right? You just flash your.
No, Danny, we still got we get a little help for a game or two. That's one thing Jim did. Former players can have access for a couple tickets for. There's a few games that were available to us as former players, because every former player isn't a millionaire, or making a ton of money. It is what it is, and every coach that has had the job had different priorities, that the way they treated former players or things they did for former players. And that was one of the things Jim did. So hopefully that'll continue.
Yeah, we got a deal for you, Scar. It's $100 if you want to go to the Arkansas State game. Get that money in before July 4th, and you can see the Wolverines and the Red Wolves.
So hopefully, Denny, our quarterbacks are down there throwing, and we're looking good, and our receivers are catching it, and Tuttle is healthy and throwing it and zinging it, and Orgy is healthy and zinging it and looking good, and we're building confidence with our offense, man, because our defense is, I guarantee you, they're a confident bunch with all the players we have returning there.
Yeah, it's there's so much unknown when it comes down to the quarterback position. I feel like there's a lot of unknown with the offensive line, but if those two pieces, I don't know how many other teams are saying around, well, if we really get an offensive line and a quarterback going, we'll take off. But to me, that's going to be the difference between Michigan making the college football playoff and not making it.
And you know something too. If you think about our offensive line, we are where the program was in my day. Young players didn't play very much in the offensive line. I mean, Zach Zinter and Keegan both played as like sophomores. Well, guess what? We're going to have guys in there that are 3-4 year players. Gentry has been there for 3 years now, and Hinton been around for 4 or 5 years. So the guys that are going to be on that field against Fresno and then Texas the following week, these are 22-year-old guys, man. That's why I have a lot of confidence. Aaron, go blue, Coach Scar, all right. But that's why I got a lot of confidence, Denny, with that offensive line, because there's a ton of old guys there.
Ferris says you like the old.
I don't know that. Listen, man. Hey, Ferris, I don't care who the quarterback is. That's just my gut feeling that they have plans for this kid because they brought him back for a 7th year. I feel the coaches have a lot of confidence in this kid. That's just my thoughts because he's been around, man. What are you going to do when, in Texas, if he's not this guy? When Texas comes in, that's a whole different deal. So, and Tuttle has maybe 8-10 starts under his belt at Indiana, and he's 4-year-old kid. So that's why I have him high on my list.
Good enough for me. Ryan Day, not so high on your list. Tuttle, high on your list. Scar, great job. We look forward to talking with you next week. Enjoy the day.
All right, Danny, go blue.
There he is, Jim Scarcelli. Smash that like button.